So namaste everybody. So let's start our class. And we are on page number 398. No, I think 398 we did. So 399 at the bottom of 399. Angad's submission. And you know that Ram and Lakshman and Sugriv and the rest of the Vanar Sena, they're all there in Lanka now. So Angad's mission. The sea of Vanars strained at its shores to begin battle. The monkeys' roaring shook the ramparts of Lanka. They were eager for the Dharam Yuddha, the righteous war, but Ram restrained them. For by the code of kings and by Dharam itself, a last effort should be made to strike peace. Okay? A messenger must be sent to Ravan, suing for it. After consulting Sugriv, Vibhishan, Hanuman, and Lakshman, Ram decided to send Angad. See, just like in Mahabharata Yuddha, Lord Krishna himself went there as a Shanti Doot, it's called, the messenger of peace. So over here, Angad was sent. Ram called Vali's son to him and said, Angad, we must make a final attempt to find a peaceful solution. Take a message to the Rakshas from me. Say to him, your glory and your kingdom will soon be lost, and your life as well. You are the worst kind of thief there is, and you have abandoned the path of wisdom. For countless years, you have sinned against the rishis of the earth. You have tormented the devas and darkened the elements of nature. But now the hour of retribution has come. Remember, Rakshas, no boon of Brahma protects you against me. You were so brave when you abducted Sita because she was alone. Let us see how brave you are when you face me in battle. I will give you a last chance to make peace. Return Sita to me, ask my pardon, and I will give it to you freely, and your life will be transformed. The gods themselves sent you this chance to mend yourself and rule for another age. If you do not take it, Ravan, you will die. The choice is yours. There is the short, savage way of bloodshed and death, and the long, kinder way of repentance and dharma. Choose whether you want to remain a king or if I must kill you and set Vibhishan on your throne. If you choose the way of violence, Rakshas, gaze deeply at your precious Lanka before you come out to fight. It will be the last you see of her before you die. Take him my message, Angad, and tell me what he says. With a cry, Angad rose into the air. He was clad in crimson and shone in the sky. The Rakshasas gasped to see him as the Vanar prince flashed over them and flew straight to Ravan's palace. Ravan stood in his sabha, putting on his armor and issuing final commands to his generals before battle was joined. Silence fell on that sabha when Angad blazed in through the window. He flew down into the mist, and the golden bracelet around his wrist was like a band of fire. Vali's son himself was a tongue of flame in Ravan's court. Ravan had no time to speak before Angad declared himself, I am Ram of Ayodhya's messenger. Without pausing, he delivered Ram's message exactly as Ram had given it to him. A growl grew in Ravan's throat as he listened. Time and again, his 9 macabre heads appeared and vanished around his central face. They glowered at the Vanar out of many malevolent eyes. When Angad had finished, Ravan roared so the walls shook around them and the floor under their feet. Seize him, hissed the lord of the Rakshasas. The demons nearest Angad sprang forward and grasped his ankles. Angad offered no struggle, but allowed himself to be held. Ravan screeched, torture him, that he dares come here with such a message. The Rakshasas fetched ropes and made to bind Angad, when he also gave a tremendous roar. He rose into the air with the 4 hefty warriors who had seized him and leaped out of the window through which he had come. Angad landed on a terrace and still roaring, shrugged off the demons who clung to him for their lives. He cast them down to their deaths, onto the flagstones far below, like a brittle twig from a dead tree. He broke a turret from Ravan's palace roof and smashed it to dust on the terrace, and roaring still, he flew back to Ram. On both sides of Lanka's gates, the opposing armies stood, sizing each other up. At first, the Rakshasas were staggered by the sheer numbers of the monkeys. But then their commanders cried, "They are only monkeys armed with sticks and stones. Shall Ravan's army that conquered the Devas fear a nuisance of Vanars?" Ravan strode out onto his terrace once more to survey his own forces and the enemies. He also cried to his troops below, asking how could the fighting Rakshasas of Lanka fear a rabble of apes? He glowered out again at Ram and his wild legions. Ram gazed into Lanka and the horde of demons within, who clashed their gleaming swords and shields together in the midday sun. He paused for only a moment after Angad returned to him with Ravan's answer to his offer of peace. Then Sita's face, her eyes brimming tears, rose like a vision in his mind. Ram raised the jeweled kodand above his head. Silence fell on both armies. Gracefully, the prince of Ayodhya brought his arm down. The roar of the Vanars was deafening as they surged forward, each monkey anxious to be the first one over the walls of Lanka. Next chapter, a serpent bond. That first onrush of the Vanars was swift and decisive. In no time, they demolished the eastern gate of Lanka. They perched in troops on the smooth outer walls of the city, which no other species could have scaled. For Sugriev's nimble monkeys, they hardly posed an obstacle. The Vanars attacked the western and southern gates, and the hills resounded with their battle cries. Then Ravan gave the signal to repulse the onslaught of the jungle. The trumpets of Lanka blared, the drummers beat up a storm. Like another sea, the Rakshasas surged forward to face the invading monkeys. The battle between those armies was like the primeval one of the Devas fought against the Asurs on the shores of the Kashir Sagar, when the Amrit was churned up and Mohini deceived the Asurs and gave all the nectar to the Devas. Not for a moment did this battle pause, not when blood flowed in scarlet streams through the streets of Lanka, not when thousands lay dead, demons and monkeys and the screams of the dismembered and the dying moved the blank sky and the voiceless rocks to pity. Warrior locked with warrior in mortal combat, strange and torturous destiny had brought them face to face under the sun of just this day, for reasons as individual and inscrutable as time is old. Indrajit and Angad fought. Their roars echoed through Lanka and bounced off the hillside. Hanuman and Jambu Mali fought. Neel and the ferocious Nikumbh. Lakshman faced Virupaksha and Ram, four Rakshasas at once. Indrajit struck Angad a glancing blow with his mace, crying out in rage, "The sign of Kishikanda!" Smashed the demon prince's chariot down with a tree trunk and killed his horses. Indrajit fled. The battle between Lakshman and Virupaksh was a brief one. Lakshman slew the Rakshas with a humming shaft through his heart. It seemed that everywhere the Vanars had the day. Rakshas chariot could hardly maneuver for the barrage of rocks and jungle soldiers rained on them. The demons used conventional techniques of war, which they had studied in their military schools and employed so successfully against enemies of the past. Now they found this quite useless. The Vanars respected no tradition of battle. They fought with uncanny strength, untamed instinct, and agility to which the Rakshasas had no answer. The sun sank into the sea and the waves turned the color of the bloody street of Lanka. Neither Rakshas nor Vanar gave any thought to the night that fell. They fought on by darkness, and Varuna trembled in his shores. With the advent of night, the demons' strength and ferocity swelled, but the Vanars were dauntless. Their golden eyes gleaming by the risen moon, they fought on. The tide from Ram's bow and Lakshman's was lustrous in the moonlight. Every shaft was a whisper of fate. The Rakshasas shrank from the two Kshatriyas. Not an arrow of theirs failed to claim a life. It was as if Ram and Lakshman were in contention to see which of them killed the most Rakshasas. The demons fled from them. They would rather be anywhere than face the human princes. Rumor flew through the Lankan army about the brothers' unworldly archery. Fighting with the tree trunks and rocks, Angad not only wounded Indrajit's body but injured his arrogance, even as once his father Vali had Indrajit's father's pride. That day, long ago, Ravan had been humiliated. Unable to contain Angad face to face, Indrajit began using Maya. He vanished before the Vanar's eyes and fought invisibly. Word reached Indrajit about Ram's and Lakshman's valor and how the Rakshas army was routed wherever the princes fought. Desperate to retrieve both honor and lost ground, he flew unseen into the sky. He loosed shafts of Agni down on the brothers of Ayodhya, taking them unawares. Mantled in Maya, Indrajit invoked a fell weapon, a Nagpash, a snake coil of darkness. He shot a clutch of arrows at Ram and Lakshman, quick as light, and charged with the serpentine pash. Hissing through the night, the weapon bound the human princes in a flash. They fell like palace trees flowered in crimson blooms. A cry of dismay went up from the Vanars. Panic, like fire, swept through them. Their eyes shut. Ram and Lakshman lay unmoving on the ground. In the sky, Indrajit roared his triumph. I am Indrajit, who conquered the king of the Devas, and two mere men thought they could fight me? Not all the rishis can wake them from the sleep I have sent Ram and Lakshman into. Tide like and inexorable, his arrows pierced 1,000 Vanars, wounding all their chieftains. No monkey could discern Ravan's son or see from where his shafts blazed down. Only Vibhishan saw his nephew veiled with Maya in the sky. The uncanny serpents wreathed phosphorescent around the felled Kshatriyas. They lay motionless. The Vanars had to force themselves to stand and fight. After Ram, who was the reason they were here, had fallen, shock ripped through the monkeys' legions. Neither Sugriv nor Hanuman knew what to do. Terror seized them also, and their jungle feet burned to run. They could hardly bear their own grief. How could they ask their Vanars to fight a battle that was already lost? Indrajit was borne away to his father on 100 Rakshasas' shoulders. He was sure the war was won. With Ram and Lakshman dead, what war was left to fight? But Vibhishan knew more about the Nagpash than the others. He came running to Sugriv, who knelt sobbing beside the motionless Ram. Vibhishan said to the Vanar king, they are only unconscious. They will wake from this swoon, and evil shall not triumph so easily. Rally your soldiers, Sugriv. Ram lives. Vibhishan called for water. When it came, he chanted some shlokas over the monkey king and sprinkled the water on his eyes as if to wake him from a trance. When Sugriv rose slowly to his feet, Vibhishan said to him, this is no time for weakness. Your army panics to see you crying. Ram and Lakshman must be guarded carefully. When they awake from their sleep of sorcery, they will lead us to victory. Be brave, Sugriv. Give in to fear now, and all will be lost. Sugriv still stood numb and disbelieving. Vibhishan took him firmly by the arm and said loudly, so all the Vanars heard him, look carefully at the princes' faces. They are not ashen with death, but still glow with life. No harm has come to Ram and Lakshman. They will rise again to lead us to victory. Until then, Sugriv, take command. Word flashed out that the brothers were not dead. Cheering loudly to reassure themselves, the monkeys were somewhat bold again. But would they really see their precious Ram leading them into battle again with Lakshman beside him? The Vanars carried the princes to a safer place to protect them from further attack. The fighting had stopped. The Rakshasas thought victory was theirs. They ignored the stricken monkeys and followed Indrajit's triumphal march back to his father's palace. No demon heard the Vanars whispering among themselves, like fire in dry grass, that Ram and Lakshman were not dead. Any question? So, a ray of hope.
I have questions. I have Urmil here.
Yes.
But I am not dressed to be on.
It's okay.
Just few things. Can you explain this Maya around, Indrajit and then Nagpasa, the snake?
Yeah,
and
see,
Varun. Who are these three?
Yeah, see, Nagpash, it's just like some kind of a power was sent from Indrajit's arrows to Ram and Lakshman. So it is almost like that power was stripped around. It's like a coil around Ram and Lakshman, like a snake is. So that's why it's called a Nagpash.
Okay.
Okay. So that's like they just went into the swoon. And Maya is, I'm sure you have heard that these Rakshas, they are Mayavi. So, see, just like earlier we learned that Shurpanakha, with the help of that Maya, she could make herself beautiful. And we saw that what did Ravan do? Ravan took a head of Ram that was made out of Maya too. So it's like an illusion. They can create something, but that doesn't mean it's there. So they must have some kind of a power back then to hallucinate the other person. And that thing will stay there for a while and then it will disappear also. See, Shurpanakha came back to the real Shurpanakha. She couldn't stay there beautiful after a long time. The same thing, the Vibhishan knew that this is a Nagpash. See, that's why Vibhishan was such a blessing for Ram. For Ram. Because Vibhishan told that this is just a Nagpash. With the time, it will go away. And it did. Otherwise, they were losing hope. Okay? And Varun is it's a god of water, Varun. Okay? It's a personification, power of God.
Yeah.
Okay? So these are the three.
I have a question.
Sure.
जो हम गोस्वामी तुलसीदास जी के रामायण में पढ़ते हैं, अंगद ने पांव जमाया जमीन पर और वो हटा के दिखाओ, मतलब शो ऑफ हिज पावर, वो इसमें नहीं है ना मेंशन्ड?
नहीं, वाल्मीकि रामायण में नहीं है. Yeah, there are some differences between Valmiki Ramayan and other Ramayans also. It's not just only Tulsidas ji and Valmiki's Ramayan. There are many other Ramayans have been written, but the Valmiki Ramayan is the first one. And that's why they say this is the authentic one. Okay? Yeah. But over here, yeah, there's no mention of that.
Yeah. When we get to the next page, because I just enjoyed reading it last night, so I made all the questions I had.
Good. I'm glad. That's the whole idea. Because if you read ahead of time, then you understand it even at a deeper level. And
I also have a question, Hersh.
Sure, Prem.
आपने कुछ अयोध्या की बाबत कहा. I didn't get that. What happened? What did Ravan's son do to something to do with Ayodhya?
No, there's no Ayodhya.
I thought you said
it
that.
Must be Ayodhya's princes.
Okay.
Yeah, but nothing has done to Ayodhya, no.
Okay.
So the word must have come Ayodhya's princes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So a ray of hope. Indrajit's march back to Ravan's palace was jubilant. So he thought that he has killed Ram and Lakshman. So that's why they mentioned towards the end of the last chapter that even though the Vanars, they were talking between themselves that Ram and Lakshman are not dead. But the Rakshasas, they did not hear it. They were just enjoying that, oh, they have killed Ram and Lakshman. So Indrajit's march back to Ravan's palace was jubilant. Conches blasted his victory. Singing and dancing broke out, and Ravan waited keenly for his son's news. Indrajit jumped down from the shoulders of the ecstatic Rakshasas who had carried him from battle. His severe, arrogant face wreathed in a smile. He bowed before his father. Ravan asked his son, "Tell me, heroic child, what have you done that makes the Rakshasas shout for joy and even you smile?" Indrajit replied, "Ram and Lakshman are dead. I killed them from the sky with the Nagpash." With a roar, Ravan jumped up from his throne. He ran to Indrajit and embraced him repeatedly. Even if he did not admit it, the Rakshas had always been anxious about this first battle with an enemy against whom no boon protected him. Dark delight swept his heart at what his prince had done. The Vanars stood around the fallen Ram and Lakshman in an anxious crowd. Silence ruled them, and any leaf that stirred in the midnight breeze made them start for fear. So terrified were they of Indrajit. Hushed, the jungle army waited for Ram and Lakshman to open their eyes. Ravan sent word to the Rakshasas of the Ashok one. When they came to him, and Trijata was among them, he said, "Tell Sita that Indrajit has killed Ram and his brother. She will not believe you. So take her aloft in the Pushpak Viman and show her the bodies from the sky. Let her know it is time she forgot her prince and came to my bed. Now she will come." His eyes shone with absolute obsession. Trijata and her Rakshasas forced protecting Sita into the Vaman and flew up with her. In the light of the moon and the torches of the two armies, Sita saw the havoc the marauding Vanars had wreaked, and she smiled. But when they flew nearer the earth, she saw how excited the Rakshasas of Lanka were and how stricken the monkeys. She saw Sugriv and Hanuman below. She saw they mourned. Lower still flew the Viman, and in a clearing at the heart of the Vanar army, Sita saw the sight that froze her blood. For the first time since Ravan had abducted her, she saw Ram and Lakshman. They lay very still on the ground. Wherever Indrajit's arrows had pierced them, their bodies had blossomed in flowers of blood. Heartbroken in a moment, Sita wailed. The rishis who said that I would be a Sumangali were wrong. Look where my husband lies, cut down by Indrajit's arrows. They said Ram would perform the Ashwamedh Yagya and be king of all the world, but he has died without even being crowned in Ayodhya. The great Vashishth's prophecies were false, and my feet, marked with the auspicious Padam Rekha, they also lied. Fate is all powerful, stronger than Yam even. O Ram. She sobbed so piteously that this hardest Rakshasi was moved. But Trijata stroked her face and said, "Hush, Sita, hush. It is the Pushpak Viman you are flying in. This chariot would never carry you into the sky unless you were still a Sumangali. Indrajit's weapons are full of Maya. They have plunged Ram and Lakshman into a trance. Look how the Vanars strain to see when they will wake up. They are not dead, only asleep. Look at Ram's and Lakshman's faces. Dead faces do not glow like theirs, and I have seen many. Trijita may be a Rakshasi, Sita, but she has never told a lie in her life, and she does not lie to you now. The princes are not dead, only asleep. They were not born to die at Indrajit's hands. Great destiny has yet to be fulfilled through them. Sita stared down more closely. She saw that indeed there was still sacred life left in Ram and Lakshman. Their chests rose and fell with pran, and there was color on their cheeks. She wiped her tears, she folded her hands to the princess and hugged Trijta. With its own will, the Pushpak Viman flew back to the palace of the Lord of Evil. Okay, so this is the end of this chapter. And this part is also, we don't read it in Tulsidas Ji Ramayan. Okay, you can see some differences.
Haji, I have a question here.
Sure, Poonam.
This, what's her name? Whoever this Rakshasi is, telling
Trijita.
Sita, yeah, and Vibhishan, they all knew that this was like a death by Maya, that they will wake up.
Yeah.
But how come Indrajit didn't know his own powers, that they were only for a short time? That made me wonder.
Yeah, sometimes
And
you
even
are
Raman, even Raman,
even
who
Raman,
knew so much.
yeah, but they were so much in their own arrogance. They just didn't see beyond it. Okay, don't we see that?
When you're full of yourself, you don't
When
see
you're full of yourself, how, I mean, we shouldn't talk about politics in this class, but still, didn't we see that night of the election, there was a victory party?
Yes.
That's right. We don't have to go too far.
It happens, right?
I guess so.
Yeah, sometimes you're just so full of yourself, you just don't see the whole picture. Okay? I mean, it really reminds me, right now when I was reading, it just reminded me of that night.
Yes.
Hershey, I have a question.
Sure, Neeru.
हम जब हनुमान जी की आरती गाते हैं तो उसमें आता अहि रावण की भुजा उखाड़ो, तो अहि रावण कौन था?
Same Ravan.
What is ahi?
Ahi means ye, this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is Sumangali?
Sumangali. And see what happens is when somebody gets married, don't we sing this Sumangals? So happily married women is called Sumangali.
Okay. Especially जिसको वरदान मिला हो कि सदा अखंड सौभाग्यवती.
So सदा सौभाग्यवती भाव. Yes. Sumangali. Okay.
Yeah.
So Trijita, see, from here you can see that even though we say it was a Rakshas, we always think that bad. But no matter how much darkness, there's always some light, some good people. And in Ayodhya, everybody, most of the people were good, but still there was mantra.
ये त्रिजटा वही है, त्रिजटा नाम राक्षसी एका.
Trijita is the one who was a elderly Rakshasi over there, who really consoled Sita throughout when she was captive there. Yeah. Okay. So number 17. Gathered anxiously around Ram and Lakshman, the Vanar chieftains were terrified lest the princes pass on from swoon into death. Then Ram's lips twitched and he stirred. The monkeys held their breath. Ram moved his head, his eyes fluttered open. Turning on his side, he saw Lakshman lying like a corpse with blood flowers sprouted on his body. Ram sat up and cried, "My brother is dead. Lakshman, how will I live when you are gone? I may find another Sita if I comb the earth, but I will never find another Lakshman. Not another brother like you, not another Kshatriya like you. How will I face Kshalya and Sumitra? Oh, what will I tell them?" He was still touched with the sorcery of Indrajit's pash. Effervescent on his skin, his speech was thick, and he spoke like one who was asleep and having a nightmare. He stroked Lakshman's face. "What will I tell Bharat and Shatrughan, his twin? No, there is nothing left to live for. Ram will also end himself at Lakshman's side. I should have cared for him like a father, and I have led him to his death. When I left Ayodhya, my brother followed me without a thought for his comfort or safety. Now I must follow him to Yam's city. Sobbing, still in a daze, so he would not allow the others to speak, Ram grasped Sugriv's hand and cried, "Loyal friend, go back to Kishikanda with what is left of your army. When Ram and Lakshman are both dead, you may find it hard to fight Ravan. Go in peace, dear Sugriv. We shall meet again upon some crossing of eternity. Fly, my sweet Vanars. Fly back to the jungle across the sea. Farewell. I will never forget you." Ram fainted again. The Vanars were frantic. When Vibhishan ran out of the darkness with his mace in his hand, the monkeys thought he was a Rakshasa come to kill them. In a wink, the ground was cleared of the jungle folk. Jamvan had to coax them out of the trees and shadows they had fled into, telling them it was only their friend Vibhishan. Slowly they gathered around Ram again, while Vibhishan sat beside him, holding his head, sobbing. Sushen, the Vanar physician, was summoned. He examined the princess. The night strained its ears to hear what Sushen would say. It seemed the very darkness mourned Ram. After probing their wounds with long fingers and peering under their eyelids, Sushen said, "This is the same Pash that bound some of Indra's devas when they fought the Asurs beside the Kshir Sagar. Brihaspati woke them from their trance with the two herbs he raised from the sea of milk. It was the Sanjeev Karni and the Vishlyaha Karni he used. Let our swiftest, most reliable Vanar fly to the Kshir Sagar, where the Amrit was churned. He will find the hills, Dron and Chandra there, rising steeply from white waves. On their slopes, he will find the Oshadis we need, for the Devas left them planted there. Let him bring them back to me, and I will make Ram and Lakshmana well again. Let Hanuman go, so there is no mistake." Now the writhing serpents that held Ram and Lakshman in their coils were plainly visible. The Vanars stepped back in fear from those emerald thongs. Just before Hanuman could fly in search of the Kshir Sagar, a great wind rose over the ocean. It howled across Lanka, pulling up small trees, blowing them across the island like blades of grass, and out over the dark water. Huge waves smashed against the shores of Lanka. Cowering in the storm, the monkeys heard the sound of unimaginable wings. Above the screaming wind, they heard the ululating cry of a golden eagle, greatest of all creating birds. The Vanars around the fallen princes cried out. The glimmering serpents loosened their coils around the brothers, turning into thin braids of lightning. They streaked away through the alarmed monkeys and flashed out across the sea. Ram and Lakshman sat up, rubbing their eyes. Still the sky churning wind swept closer. The monkeys scattered in fresh panic. The heavens themselves seemed to have opened, and from another mandal, awesome Garud flew down to Lanka. His body seemed to be made of a supernatural light, and his cry of love shook the island. Crystal wings tucked in, he glided down beside Ram. As the monkeys peered, wonder-struck, from tree and shadow, they saw Garud assume a human form as soon as he landed upon the earth, a manly form, though his head remained an eagle's and his wings were folded behind him. He embraced Ram and Lakshman. The brothers' bleeding wounds closed and vanished as soon as Garuda touched them. The fabulous being stood before Ram, who said in wonder, "Who are you? I do not know you, but when you touched us, our wounds healed, and I felt as if my father had caressed me. Who are you, mighty one? Your garlands and ornaments are not of this world." Garud said, "It is I, Garud, your companion through the ages. Just once, during this incarnation of yours, I am meant to come to you. Not the Devas or Gandharvas could have shorn the Nagpash with which Indrajit bound you. But all serpents fear me, even the subtle ones of Agni. They fled when I came, or I would have made a meal of them, be they of flesh or fire. Your taintless dharam drew me down the mandlas. You will triumph now, Ram. No one will stop you. And when Ravan is dead, you will rule the earth as you were born to. But this world weakens me, and I must return to where I came from, into timelessness from time. Don't perplex yourself too much with what I have said. One day, when your mission is accomplished, you will understand everything. Fear nothing, perfect Ram. Sita and you will soon be together again. Then, as the Vanars stood rooted, the miraculous one was a splendid eagle again. Unfurling, shimmering wings, he flew up and out of this world, still crying out in love. When Ram and Lakshman stood up once more, the monkey's cries of Jai Ram, Jai Lakshman reverberated across Ravan's ramparts. The Jungle Warriors. Let me see how long that one is. Yeah, let's read that one and then we'll go to the Hindi book. When Ram and Lakshman were healed, earth, sea, and sky resounded with the Vanar's rapture. Lanka echoed with the monkeys cheering, their wild horns, conches, and drums. Sugriev's people sprang high into the air. They turned somersaults, kissed their tails. Their hand clapping was like a tempest. And once more they rushed the gates of Lanka, eager for battle, confident of victory. In his palace, Ravan heard the monkeys roaring. He raised his hands to stop the revelry around him. Then all the Rakshasas heard it. The joy of the Vanars, a tide risen to drown the demons' celebrations. Ravan said, "Go and see what they are so pleased about." The guards came back to their king and reported in low voices, "The human princes have been healed by a miracle. The Nagpash does not bind them anymore. The 100 wounds Indrajit gave them have vanished from their bodies. No trace remains that they were injured." As if to himself, Ravan said, "No one has ever escaped from the coils of the Nagpash before. Indra himself could not undo the bonds of darkness." He paused, seething, tormented. Then he cried, "Dhrum Raksha, go forth with your army. Kill the Koshal brothers. Brave Rakshas, you have never failed me before." Roaring in great self-assurance, Dhrumbraksh arrived on the battlefield beyond Lanka's gates with his fearsome legion behind him. But he saw evil omens in the sky and Hanuman beyond, waiting with his indomitable monkeys around him. Dhrumbraksh was one of Ravan's fiercest commanders, and his Rakshasas were some of the bravest in all Lanka. A pitched battle broke out between Hanuman and Dhrumbraksh, the monkeys and the demons, and by night the Rakshasas were more powerful. The Vanars fought with fang and nail, they fought with rocks and young trees, they flung like lances at the enemy. At first, in the sheer joy of the resurrection of Ram and Lakshman, Hanuman's monkeys killed thousands of demons, but the Rakshasas came on at them in wave after wave, fearless by night, ready to die. Sword, dagger, and arrow flashed under the moon, and hundreds of Vanars also fell. Slowly they had to give way to the Rakshasas, so many were they and so savage. At the heart of the fighting, surrounded by a guard of his best men, was the seasoned Dhrumbraksh himself. He fought from his chariot, flitting everywhere to strengthen the weaker lines where the monkeys threatened to break through. His arrows were like silver hail, and his battle axe was a thing of absolute fear, glinting crimson in the moonlight. Hanuman saw that the demon at the heart of his men was the key to his encounter. He saw his monkeys forced back from the Lankan gate, and he could not reach the Rakshas on the ground. He picked up a rock and flung it through the air at Dhrumbraksh. The great stone flew down, whistling from the bronze sky. Just in time, Dhrumbraksh leaped out of his chariot and saved his life. But the chariot was smashed, and half the ring of fighting Rakshasas around him was crushed. As he jumped away, Dhrumbraksh himself tripped and fell. Before he get on his feet again, Hanuman was upon him, snarling. With another rock, the son of the wind crushed the demon's head like an eggshell. Ravan howled long and loud. When he heard Dhumraksh was dead, he called for another Rakshas as ferocious. Vajra Dhamastra cried Ravan to his lean, scarred demon. Go to war, take Maya with you. Vajra Dhamastra took the field with sorcery. He went everywhere unseen, and his sword and arrows spilled Vanar blood copiously. He fought with cunning, but fate was arranged against him. Seeing the head of a monkey near him lopped off by an invisible enemy, Angad flayed out blindly with a blow like thunder. He knocked the invisible Vajra Dhamastra senseless. When the demon fell, his Maya dissolved, and the monkey saw their tormentor clearly. They fell on him with cries of revenge, for he had killed many of them. Shortly, just a bloody mess of flesh and bone remained where the diamond fanged Rakshas had lain moments ago. Feeling his hand being forced more quickly than he liked, Ravan sent a Kampan, Maharathik, bane of Lanka's enemies and one of her boldest commanders. With his chariot guard, Akampan drove like a storm to the western gate, where Hanuman waited after killing Drumraksh. Now Hanuman knew exactly how to face the chariot-mounted enemy. Before Akampan could even begin to fight, he was crushed by a boulder that whistled down from the sky. Many of his Rakshasas were crushed as well. Under a barrage of rocks and tree trunks, the monkeys hurled at them. The rest fled back to their king. Ravan received the news grimly. He showed just his main face now, the rest were hidden. Forked serpent tongues darted in and out of their mouths. Not even his generals and ministers could bear that sight. Lifting his grey central face at last, Ravan said, it is almost dawn. I will inspect the garrisons now. He went around the city, speaking words of encouragement to his Rakshasas, brave words he hardly felt himself. He saw his dead warriors lying in heaps. He saw that so far the battle belonged to Ram's Vanars. Stalking back into his palace, Ravan called Parhasta, his Senapati. Dhrum Raksha, Vajra Dhamastra, and Akampan are slain, and our men are near panic. It is time one of our very finest went into the battle. I would go myself, or send Kumbhakaran, Indrajit, or Nikum. But turning the tide of a war is your special talent. How will these chattering tree dwellers who search themselves as they fight, scratch themselves as they fight, contain Prahasta, the master? Perhaps the others could not see well enough in the dark, but now day dawns. Go, my friend, make a river, a sea of monkeys, blood for your king. Ravan embraced his general, Parhast said emotionally. Ravan, I owe everything I am to you. My life is yours, my lord, and I will not fail you. He bowed to his king. Ravan embraced him again, and Parhast turned and walked out of the Sabha. His commanders announced his coming to his army, waiting anxiously to sweep into battle. Parhast went to the northern gate, where Ram himself was. Seeing him come, at the head of his glittering legions, Ram turned to Vibhishan. Who is this Rakshas that takes the field against us? Surely he is a Maharathika. Vibhishan said quietly. I had not expected him so soon. It is Ravan's Senapati Parhasta. He is a master of astras, and he fought against the Devas at Ravan's side. In a blaze of war that set the sky, a light came Parhast with his legions. He was an awesome Rakshas. His astras lit up the dawn. They fell flaming among the Vanars, and each one made ashes of 1,000 monkeys. The Vanar lines began to melt at his inexorable advance. Worry sat on Ram's face. Then he heard a roar from the trees above. Sugriv's Senapati Neel had silently watched Parhat's advent. Now he jumped down to the ground to face the Rakshas general in his chariot of beaten gold. Perhaps horses reared in alarm at the stupendous Vanar who loomed suddenly before them. With 5 lightning blows of the young tree in his hands, Neel felled those beasts. With another stroke, he pulverized the chariot, roaring as deafeningly as the Vanar. Perhaps leaped down to the ground. They fought hand to hand, sword against tree trunk. The duel shook the earth. It seemed the Vanar and the Rakshas fought with the elements as their weapons. Thunder, lightning, and tempest seemed to be in their palms, and they struck each other with these, roaring so loudly that the rest of the war was silenced. Monkeys and demons gathered round their senapatis and watched them in awe. Perhast struck Neel down twice. The demons roared as loudly as their general, but Neel sprang up from the ground with a flat slab of rock in his hands. He leaped 50 hands into the air and with all the force of his descent smashed the rock down squarely on Parhat's head. The Rakshas's skull was shattered and he lay twitching on the ground, his brains dribbling out. The roar of victory of Neel, the son of Agni, echoed through Lanka when they saw Parhast felled. The Rakshasas fled back to Ravan with fear pursuing them like a flash flood. The Vanars erupted in joy. They lifted Neel onto their shoulders and carried him back to Ram in a wave. Ram embraced the hero of the moment. In his palace, Ravan heard Parhast was killed. Tears scaled his eyes and he cried, "How can it be? Parhast ravaged Indra's army when he fought in Devlok, and now just a monkey has killed him? He was the most loyal friend I had. He was my finest warrior. I will come to battle myself. The Vanars will wish they had never followed their human prince to Lanka. They think they have victory in sight. When they feel my astres, they will know who Ravan is. Parhast is dead, but I swear the monkeys shall rue his death more than we." Let's stop it here. So this war goes on now. Okay. Any question? So let's look at the Hindi book also. There's the headings over there. श्री राम का सुग्रीव को दुसाहस से रोकना. You remember Sugriv is the one who just leaped at Ravan and wanted to fight with Ravan, and Ram stopped him. After that, he told him, "Don't do that." लंका के चारों द्वारों पर वानर सैनिकों की नियुक्ति, रामदूत अंगद का रावण के महल में पराक्रम तथा वानरों के आक्रमण से राक्षसों को भय. See, some of the translations of Ramayan, they say that Angad went even before, before they even reached Lanka, Angad was sent. No, Angad was sent right before the war. Okay. So लंका पर वानरों की चढ़ाई तथा राक्षसों के साथ उनका घोर युद्ध. द्वंद्व युद्ध में वानरों द्वारा राक्षसों की पराजय. रात में वानरों और राक्षसों का घोर युद्ध, अंगद के द्वारा इंद्रजीत की पराजय, माया से अदृश्य हुए इंद्रजीत का नाग में बाणों द्वारा श्री राम और लक्ष्मण को बांधना. इंद्रजीत के बाणों से श्री राम और लक्ष्मण का अचेत होना और वानरों का शोक करना. श्री राम और लक्ष्मण को मूर्छित देख वानरों का शोक, इंद्रजीत का हर्ष द्वार, विभीषण का सुग्रीव को समझाना, इंद्रजीत का लंका में जाकर पिता को शत्रु वध का वृतांत बताना और प्रसन्न हुए रावण के द्वारा अपने पुत्र का अभिनंदन. वानरों द्वारा श्री राम और लक्ष्मण की रक्षा, रावण की आज्ञा से राक्षसियों का सीता को पुष्पक विमान द्वारा रणभूमि में ले जाकर श्री राम और लक्ष्मण का दर्शन कराना और सीता का दुखी होकर रोना. सीता का विलाप और त्रिजटा का उन्हें समझा बुझाकर श्री राम लक्ष्मण के जीवित होने का विश्वास दिलाकर पुनः लंका में लौटा लाना. श्री राम का सचेत होकर लक्ष्मण के लिए विलाप करना और स्वयं प्राण त्याग का विचार करके वानरों को लौट जाने की आज्ञा देना। विभीषण को इंद्रजीत समझकर वानरों का पलायन और सुग्रीव की आज्ञा से जामवान का उन्हें सांत्वना देना, विभीषण का विलाप और सुग्रीव का उन्हें समझाना, गरुड़ का आना और श्री राम लक्ष्मण को नागपाश से मुक्त करके चला जाना। श्री राम के बंधन मुक्त होने का पता पाकर चिंतित हुए रावण का धूम्राक्ष को युद्ध के लिए भेजना और सेना सहित धूम्राक्ष का नगर से बाहर आना। धूम्राक्ष का युद्ध और हनुमान जी के द्वारा उसका वध। वज्रदंष्ट्र का सेना सहित युद्ध के लिए प्रस्थान, वानरों और राक्षसों का युद्ध, वज्रदंष्ट्र का वानरों का तथा अंगद द्वारा राक्षसों का संहार। वज्रदंष्ट्र और अंगद का युद्ध तथा अंगद के हाथ से उस निशाचर का वध। रावण की आज्ञा से अकंपन आदि राक्षसों का युद्ध में आना और वानरों के साथ उनका घोर युद्ध। हनुमान जी के द्वारा अकंपन का वध। प्रहस्त का रावण की आज्ञा से विशाल सेना सहित युद्ध के लिए प्रस्थान। नील के द्वारा प्रहस्त का वध। ओके, सो अंगद, नील, हनुमान, they really played a big role in this war. प्रहस्त के मारे जाने से दुखी हुए रावण का स्वयं ही युद्ध के लिए पधारना। This will read next week. उसके साथ आए हुए मुख्य वीरों का परिचय, रावण की मार से सुग्रीव का अचेत होना, लक्ष्मण का युद्ध में आना, हनुमान और रावण में थप्पड़ों की मार, रावण द्वारा नील का मूर्छित होना, लक्ष्मण का शक्ति के आघात से मूर्छित एवं सचेत होना तथा राम से परास्त होकर रावण का लंका में घुस जाना। So we'll read that part next week in that English book. So any question, comment, and if we have Padmini, we can have a bhajan by her.
Manju Malhotra.
Oh, I'm
Manju,
sorry. No, I had no questions.
Okay.
Sorry.
No question? Okay. All right. So a lot of detail. You can see that. See, normally we say, oh, there was a war and Ram won. No, it was a long war. Very fierce war. Okay. Because the Rakshas, they were full of Maya. They could make themselves disappear. They could come up with all kinds of weapons. Again, it's like a
already died.
Yuddha between dharam and adharam. Ultimately, they show that dharam wins. See, just like in Mahabharata also. Kauravas, they had great warriors on their side. It was a lot bigger army also on their side. But who won? Pandavas did. Yes, Prem. Prem, you have a question or no?
Has Kumbhakaran already died? I forgot.
Who?
Kumbhakaran?
No. Kumbhakaran will come now.
Okay.
Next week we'll see, because after this, Ravan will send his people to wake up Kumbhakaran.
Okay.
Okay, then Kumbhakaran will come and then there will be war and then he will die. Then Ravan's son will die also, Indrajit. So it's just like a, yeah, all those powerful, brave Rakshasas. So, okay, Padmini is here. So, Padmini, you can sing.
Namaste, Hersh. Namaste. Thank you. Sing a beautiful Ram Bhajan, originally sung by Hariom Sharanji. So, Ram Ramaya, Ram Ramaya, Jag Rakhware, Tera hame sahara, ओ जीवन नैया कारण हारे, दिल ने तुम्हें पुकारा, ओ राम रमैया, ओ राम गणिकावीत अजामिल तारे, तारा सदन सकाई। तुलसी के तुम बनकर प्यारे, तारी मीरा बाई। तुलसी के तुम बनकर प्यारे, तारी मीरा बाई। राम रमैया कबीर पुकारे, हो गए भव से पारा। ओ जीवन नैया कारण हारे, दिल ने तुम्हें पुकारा। ओ राम रमैया, ओ राम रमैया। जब हम अंश सनातन तेरे, क्यों डोरी ये लागे। तू ही कृपा करे जो स्वामी, भीतर ज्योति जागे। तू ही कृपा करे जो स्वामी, भीतर ज्योति जागे। दया निधे प्राण आधारे, कर दो घट उजियारा। ओ जीवन नैया कारण हारे, दिल ने तुम्हें पुकारा। ओ राम रमैया, ओ राम रमैया। द्वारे तेरे आन पड़े हैं, छोड़ कहाँ जब जाए। तुम सदा तारा हारा, और कहाँ हम पाए। तुम सदा तारन हारा, और कहाँ हम पाए। शरण मिले शरण लगा लो प्राण प्यारे, रहे न कोई दुखियारा। ओ राम रमैया, राम रमैया जग रखवारे, तेरा हमें सहारा। ओ जीवन नैया कारण हारे, दिल ने तुम्हें पुकारा। ओ राम रमैया, ओ राम रमैया, ओ राम रमैया।
Thank you very much, Padmini. Beautiful. Beautiful.
This is the first time I heard a lot of his bhajans, but not this one.
Anybody, any question, comment?
Thank you. Thank you.
suggestion?
Hey, Padmini,
Ji.
I have a lots of cassette with these bhajans. Do you want?
Sure, I would love to have them. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and then, one day I will leave those to the ashram, and then you can
Yes.
pick it. And I will give you, tell you one.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you, Rani.
I have a lots of Hare Haran and all these, but
Sure.
I don't sing anymore. I love to listen now.
Rani has to sing then if she gets the wordings.
Oh God. You know what? I sing, my throat get in the middle is scratchy and I start sneezing and all these things. So that's the reason I cannot sing. Then he said, Rani, stop.
But Rani can laugh, huh?
I
Right?
can laugh easily. That can make you laugh too.
Yeah, you laugh. You laugh beautifully.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
So tomorrow I'll see you, and then Thursday we'll have a day off, and then Friday we'll meet again.
Yep.
I love your shawl color. Beautiful.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
What did you say?
The
Whose
yellow,
Topic,
beautiful shawl color.
Oh, mine? Yeah, I know. I'm wearing woolen
Green.
shirt. Manju, you also want me to wear warm clothes, so today I'm fully warm.
Good.
Yeah, Manju always takes care of me.
Takes care of it.
And
You
you all
remember,
have a,
Manju, when we used to have a class in your house, you just, before I would get out, she'll just close my
Yeah,
coat.
jacket.
Yeah.
I know. I have this about.
No, I
the
have.
same.
I am well taken care of by all of you
Of
guys.
course.
Yeah. And Poonam, yesterday she brought that good for me, so I've been eating.
Oh, she did. So why do you have to tell us?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Oh no.
Tell us.
You guys can come and I'll share it with you.
You need to have this to soothe your throat. You आप इतना बोलते हैं. So much you teach.
Hey, Manju, you
हाँ
are
जी.
on my list. Don't worry.
Okay.
मैंने कहा मैं भी अपनी शक्ल दिखा दूं.
पूनम list सुना दो.
Namaste, everybody.
Namaste, Mahendra ji. Poonam, you know what you got to do? Just on Zoom, make it in front of us so we all can learn how to make it properly.
Oh God. Maybe one day.
Just have a demo for us.
I thought you are telling her to eat the own preparation and be on Zoom. We enjoy that. Okay.
Poonam, I love good too.
I know.
Oh, Poonam, you are in trouble. I'm so sorry.
No trouble at all.
I know Poonam has a big heart, so.
No
She
trouble.
does.
But she really knows how to make it.
What's the topic for tomorrow, Hershey?
Tomorrow we were trying to have everybody talk, but then I decided that everybody may not talk, or they may repeat the same thing again and again. So I will give a talk on gratitude.
That's good.
And then if anybody wants to talk, they can, definitely, but not everybody. So
at the end, we will sing the bhajan on gratitude together.
Yeah, definitely. Sing the bhajan. Say a few of you can definitely. I mean, I'm not saying you should not talk, but that's why I'll talk only for half an hour. And then we'll have the second half an hour for all of you to participate also. Bhajan and anything you want, you have written, because I'm sure Urmil has written something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Urmil ji, put the words. We will sing it like national anthem.
No,
yoga anthem.
I only will say a few words or recite a few words.
Okay.
And Padmini can come up with Kamal has told me some song of gratitude. So maybe Padmini can sing that. And
Sure.
Oh, I love that.
Tomorrow, Rita
Hershey, I found a bhajan on gratitude. I'll sing that.
Yeah, tomorrow Rita is going to sing.
Okay, then Rita can sing the gratitude.
Yeah. Because I'm not going to go over any mudra, only the talk for half an hour, and then we have half an hour for all of you. Okay.
And then Rita Chawla can sing that gratitude song she knows.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can someone sing this one, please? Guru Meri Puja, Guru Govinda.
Oh my God, yeah.
I love that.
I love that too.
Sure.
Oh, that is a very, oh gosh, that's a beautiful bhajan.
Yes,
I will sing that. Times at the ashram.
Yeah, that's a beautiful bhajan. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, just tomorrow
I
we'll
will
just have
sing
it
that
fun.
Guru Meri Puja.
Okay. All right. So what you can do is, if there are so many singers, just sing only
one paragraph.
One paragraph, so that everybody gets a chance to sing something. Okay, whoever wants to sing. And then what you can do, whoever wants to sing, just let Jyoti or Manny know. Or maybe in the chat box, put it over there, so that we can divide the time among everybody. But I will not talk more than half an hour, I promise you. Okay. I will not take up the whole hour and then say, no time. I won't be that kind of a teacher tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Hershey. Thank you
so much.
Thank you, Hershey.
Okay, all right.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful day. Enjoy I don't know whether you have snow outside or not, but enjoy this whole day.
Thank you to all these smiling faces we see every day. Thank you.
I know. ऐसे लगता है जैसे अपनी सारी सखियां ना रोज आ जाती हैं.
No, सच्ची में.
हरजी कुछ लड़कियां बिल्कुल नहीं पार्टिसिपेट करती और स्माइल भी नहीं करती. Are they shy of they are new girls and we are the old crazy ones who keep talking? तो वो लोग तो बात ही नहीं करती हैं, तो उनको सिर्फ open up कराना है
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right, Urmil. Yes, I agree. But इसीलिए last 15 minutes देती तो हूँ सभी को बोलने के लिए, पर everybody in any class, Urmil, 100% people never talk. Some people just only listening. Okay.
Okay.
So, Urmil, believe it or not, when I went to school, I was the quiet one. I would never talk. I was a shy one and just sit in the front, but never talk.
Yeah.
So there are all kinds, right?
Yep.
So
I know there are all kinds of situations.
That's why this world is so beautiful. Variety.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when I was in convent school, my English was weak. And I always sat there quietly because I couldn't speak such good English at that time. Then I had to take private tuition and all that stuff. Then finally I bloomed many years later.
Yeah, that's what happens, right?
So, and then you married Kamalji, which is a bloom. And then you kept on blooming forever and ever.
Then I met Hersh and Manju and all. Then I opened up a lot.
Yeah, see, look
then
at that.
you had no option but to really bloom.